Well, welcome back again to the workshop. Welcome back to the Ovation Spalted Maple project. It's actually turned into more of a project than I was really hoping for it to be. But as you can see here, I've cleaned out all of this finish around the edge. And if I take the bridge and I put it on there, it actually will drop down into the area that I've cleaned out where the finish, and it doesn't move. It sits right down in the space where it should. So when I go to glue this back on, we'll have the wood here, the rosewood of the bridge right up against the wood of the top, and clamp all of that, and we're going to be good. But the thing that I'm still not happy with at this point, and I showed you this before, but if I take, and again, we've got no pressure, no anything, just, and I can feel there's a big hump in this area, and that's because if you remember those two screws that were in there, in the back, when the bridge started pulling up, the two screws and didn't let go, of course, and it actually pulled this whole area behind these two screws, and it pulled it up this way. So the top of the guitar, the wood is actually deformed, and so again, this took many hours. I didn't film it, but basically it was scoring with the razor blade, using a combination of, I've got some small chisels and razor blades here, it's scoring with an X-Acto knife, really thin, sharp X-Acto knife, scraping all of this finish off. And listen, the finish is really thick. It took it took several hours for me to get all this off. Anyway, I'm still not happy with, let me show you this. If you remember though, we have made some progress. I clamped this up, and I showed you that in the other video, pushed this part of the wood down, but I'm still not happy with this. I can't get my pinky all the way under now. Before it was I could get my pinky under like this, and now I can barely get the tip. If you can see that on the camera there, but I'll just rock this, and you can see there's still a fairly significant, depending on where I put, back here, right at the rear part of the bridge. Again, it's these screws, and they've pulled this whole area here up. Now, if I go to the front part of the bridge, it's flat. See that? It's flat. It's flat. Here's where the screws are, or were. There's no screws in there anymore, of course. That's where the screws were. And as I go back, now I have more deflection with the ruler, with the straight edge, more deflection. Well, if I could hold on to it, more deflection here. So I'm still not happy with that much of a deflection in the back part of the guitar. So I'm going to try something. And just as an FYI, on the camera, you can definitely tell where I've cleaned this off. But what you can't see is I did do some damage to the finish around here, and I'm going to have to fix that. So I'm going to be able, there's a couple, and I think I showed one of the scratches that I made on camera. And I had a place back here where actually part of the finish chipped out beyond the edge. So I'm going to have to do some drip fill with some lacquer, some wet sanding around here and polishing to get rid of some scratches that I made. And again, that's just hazards of the trade of doing this kind of thing. When you start messing around with, taking something apart that, if it was done right in the first place, shouldn't have to come apart, then you're going to do some damage. And again, this finish is really thick. I didn't measure it, but it's pretty thick at this spot. I can take the calipers out here, and I didn't want to make this video super long on this part of stuff. Well, I don't know what I did with them. They're not in the case. So anyway, I'll measure that and tell you the thickness of the finish later. I'm not going to take time to mess with that. All right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something a little bit drastic, I think, because this wood is really being resistant to going back to its original shape, which was a lot closer to being flat than it is right now. So it also gives me a chance here in this video to show you the what I've come up with to actually clamp all of this. And again, I need to be able to put pressure along some spots here when I go to glue the bridge back on. I need to be able to put some good clamping pressure. So I've built myself a little something here, and I'm going to show that to you in just a second. But what I'm going to do right now is I've got really good access to the inside of the guitar, and I'm going to I've got some hot water, tap water, about as hot as I could get it, and I'm going to paint hot water on the wood, on the underside where it's just the raw wood. And what I'm hoping is that by doing that and then clamping it, I can get the wood if I get the wood wet and then I clamp while it's wet, as it dries, I'm hoping it'll dry it back into its original shape. Now, there's no guarantees of that, and it's I don't think there's a huge risk in doing any damage, any further damage to like the finish or the top, or joint splitting apart. I'm not gonna like just pour this whole glass of water in there, so I'm not soaking it that much. I'm actually gonna see if I've got a paintbrush here. I'm just gonna take a paintbrush and I'm just gonna paint some water down in here. You won't be able to see it, and I apologize for that, but I'm not going to bring you mobile. You can just kind of watch from where you are. But on the inside, if you're familiar, and I showed you the inside of this guitar in one of the earlier videos, the bridge plate where the two screws are, underneath side where the two screws were, is the bridge plate. Right behind that is the top, the actual raw wood at the top of the guitar, and that's what I want to flatten back out. So I'm just going to take some hot water, and I'm going to just, with this paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint it right on the wood and just let it sit there and actually soak in to the wood. And I can see it soaking in. I wish I had I guess I could hold you and let you come over here and see, but anybody who's done anything with wood, you'll know if you dump water on wood that's dried out, you'll know how it soaks it up. So I'm gonna soak this here. Let it sit for just a minute while let some of that water soak in there. And again, this is a bit of a risk here because could always end up doing more damage than is already done. But I think that's actually all the water I'm going to put on it. So I'm going to take the guitar and just set it aside for a second. Alright, there you go. I've repositioned the camera just a little bit there so you can see that I'm going to explain some stuff here. I've got just some blocks of wood. Got an old t-shirt and a piece of wood that's got an angle. Do I have that in the camera? Yeah, there you go. It's got an angle on it. I showed that to you, I think, in an earlier video. Put that under the end of the guitar because of that bowl shape, and want to try to keep the guitar from rolling that way as I put clamping pressure down. And excuse me, the guitar wants to go that way, so I'm going to try to avoid some of that. So let me show you what I built here. Get this water out of the way so I don't make a mess. Okay, I've repositioned you again, so let me explain what I've done here. We've got a 2x4 attached to a couple of pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, which is then attached to a plywood 3/4 inch plywood base. And then what I'm going to do with that is put the guitar on here and be inside here, and then I can put clamping pressure down on the guitar. Let me show you one other thing that I've just come up with here. This is a piece of oak from just cabinet project that I did in another part of the house where I kept the scrap pieces. I've screwed that to a piece, just a square piece of like a 1x1 piece of pine and flat. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put that inside the guitar in that hole, the access hole, and that way when the guitar is sitting here, I've got this support, which is very strong, up on the top, on the underside of the top of the guitar, and I'm not just pushing down with nothing underneath to support and take a chance on either cracking the fiberglass or breaking it away from the wood top or something. So I did that as a support. So let me bring the guitar back. Show you what we're going to do here. I'm just going to lay this t-shirt down here to protect, again, to just protect the guitar. I need to put the flip it around on the back side here, or with the back facing up. Got the access hole here. I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see. Got the access hole. Maybe if I move the guitar up this way, that might help. But I'm going to take this block, and I had to trim a little to be able to get down in here. But I'm going to put that right up against top of the guitar there, and it's pretty well centered in the access hole, and it'll help support. I've already torn some of this tape just so I don't have to spend a lot of camera time. Just kind of help hold this in place here across, and I'm just pulling the tape tight here. So if you can see that kind of in a star pattern there to hold that block in there. Now if we bring, now we've got support for this part of the guitar. Okay, so again, you don't go down to the hardware store to the Home Depot or something and find stuff. You kind of have to be creative. So I'm going to put this block underneath here, and again the block will keep, because I'm actually pushing. If I take the block out, I push on the guitar, it rolls because it's got that rounded back. So if I put the block under here and then I push, you can see it helps hold the guitar in place. And I need to get this in the right position here to be able to clamp. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I've got a small piece of cloth here. I'm going to put that across, and again we need to apply pressure here where this part of the guitar is bowed up here. So what we're trying to do is flatten that part. We want to take that out of the guitar, and I've got just a couple of smaller blocks to put, again because we've got that entire bowl here. I'm going to put a block on either side, and that keeps the guitar okay. So you can see now it doesn't rock that way, and it won't go that way, and it won't rock this way. So, and I really hope I've got you in the camera here. So here we go. I've got a board that I'm going to put across this spot here. You can see the board rocks just back and forth, just like what I'm shooting for is to clamp right behind where those screws. Basically put this edge of the board right over those screw holes. So trying to get where that should, and I'm approximating here that if I clamp here, that's going to be pretty good. And I need to shift everything down back toward you so I can get some good clamping pressure. I'm just eyeballing this at this point. And I just kind of wanted to bring you along for the journey. If somebody else has an Ovation that you need to put some clamping pressure on the top, you know, here you go. This is what I've come up with, and it's stuff that I had around, but it's also, if not everything, I'm going to show you the other piece of the deal here in right now. But I'm going to put 3 clamps. Now the other piece, and these I didn't have. I ordered these from Amazon. Came in a 5-pack for, it was less than $10 with the shipping. And it is something called a turnbuckle. And it basically screws on either end. I left the eye on this side. When they shipped, let me see. Yeah, I've got one that I didn't. When they shipped, they look like this. What I did is just took the metal saw blade, chopped off the one end so that it can go into this block. And with the block, I took the drill bit so that this can sit. That makes sense to you? Oh, I think I'm blocking you here. Again, amateur hour on the camera work. So that can go down in there. So the head of this eye will push against the top of the 2x4, and then with this sitting in this little block of wood, will keep it from sliding around on the board down here. So let me put one of these in here, and you've got to do these fairly. I've done a test run with these already, and I'm going to use 3 in this case. I'm going to use 4 when I actually put the bridge back on. I'll use the same setup, but for now I'm just trying to flatten the top. But you have to do this fairly even as far as pressure goes, otherwise the other 2 will fall down. So I'm going to start with the one in the middle, and just and depending on which one it is, one way lowers it and the other way brings it up. That's how the turnbuckle works. And so right now I'm just trying to get in here and get some fairly straight. I don't really want a whole lot of pressure at this point, just enough for it to stand up there. So hopefully you can see that in there. That's the one in the middle. I'll do one on the side here. And man, you can see how that immediately rocked that way because of how bowed the top of this guitar is. All right, let me get this one started. And then to put the pressure on, kind of have to see how, oh, glad it didn't fall on the top of the guitar. I got to really do this in stages here, get them kind of set up the way you want and fairly straight. And I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't, you just kind of want them a little straight up and down. I get it all clamped up. I'll bring you handheld so you can actually see a lot of the fun of this. And I do enjoy working on stuff like this, and a lot of the fun of it for me is figuring stuff out like this, where, uh-oh, yep, no scratch. So, yep, again, got to be super cautious. Again, it's just trial and error, so I'm going to go a little bit at a time on each one of these. Try to keep them fairly straight. Ah. All right, so now what we have to do, and I'm going to bring the ruler up, and I probably should have had you on this other side, but we've already taken a lot. The ruler's just barely moving on the back of the guitar. So again, I'm just trying to tighten these enough to get that bulge out of the back, and a little bit at a time, keep them nice and snug. Again, I don't want so much pressure that I'm gonna break the top of the guitar. I just want to get that still rocking just a little bit, and I'm gonna tighten it up until there's no movement at all from the ruler. So I'm gonna go a little bit more. A little bit more there. And we are really, really super close there. I think one more little turn on everything, especially at this one in the middle, because that's where all right, now that should be good. Oh yeah, that's very, very good there. Now I'll have to leave this clamped up for probably several days before I unclamp it. All right, I got you mobile. Let me bring you up under here, show you again this contraption. There's the 3/4 inch plywood for the bottom and the sides, the 2x4 on the top, and again the 2x4 in this case is stiff enough where it won't flex, so that's why I chose to go with a 2x4. There you got a good shot of each of the turnbuckles under here, and this is super flat now. And again, I kind of saturated the underside of the wood of the top of the guitar with some very hot water, just hot tap water. I didn't like boil it or anything, but just really hot tap water. And oh, sorry about that. Handheld and amateur hour on the camera work. Apologize for that. Trying to keep you in, but give you a view here, and you can see how flat we were able to keep the guitar even with this bowl shape. So with these, small block under each side. I've got a small block under here, a small block under here, and then I've got that angled block underneath the back here, and I can give you a closer, there's the angle block, so the angle part wedges itself underneath the corner of the bowl. And then I put, again, on that access hole, this is the size block that I use, so I have this coming up, a piece of wood like this coming up through that access hole to support the top of the guitar from the bottom side. That way, with all this downward pressure, we're not going to take a chance on cracking the top of the guitar or separating the bridge plate or anything like that. We don't want to do any kind of damage like that. But let me see if I can bring you around here. And I showed you earlier how much deflection there was when the ruler was on the back of the guitar. And so you can see now it is totally flat. I'm on the edge there, and I'm on the edge over there, and there's absolutely no deflection. We are perfectly flat right now with this ruler. So I'm going to leave this clamped up for several days, and I just wanted to bring you in for that part of the journey. I do have, like I said, and I showed you way earlier, that whole section is cleaned out and ready for the bridge to get glued back on, and then I have some touch-up work to do on the finish and all of that. So there's still ways to go on this, but I thought I'd just bring you in, give you an update, and show you. I'm going to set this off to the side. I've got a couple other projects that I'm going to work on while this is just staying clamped up for several days, and we'll see. And who knows, we may not make any more progress than we've already made in flattening out the top of this guitar. But I'm going to give it another try here and leave it clamped up and come back, and when I get ready to glue the bridge back on and get all that going, I'll bring you back in so you can follow along. Thanks again for watching. If you like the videos, thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, tell your friends. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.